Are you certain you're meant to be in here? The words sliced through the hushed VIP lounge like ice cracking. Richard Thornton loomed over his ex-wife, champagne flute raised like a victorious sword. Diana Williams, 38, sat perfectly still in a leather armchair, cradling an ordinary coffee cup, dressed in a simple yet elegant blazer from a regular store. At his side, his new wife, a platinum blonde with diamond manicured nails, filmed everything on her phone, stifling giggles. Really deep, Richard pressed, twisting the old pet name into a weapon. This area is reserved for a certain caliber of traveler. Wouldn't the regular terminal feel more comfortable? The room went dead quiet. Executives in Brioni suits and socialites clutching Hermes bags turned to watch the free show. Diana felt every stare, some amused, some pitying, but kept her breathing even. 5 years earlier, she had left that marriage with nothing but her pride and a tiny consulting business Richard had mocked as a hobby. What he couldn't possibly know, what no one in that lounge could guess, was that hobby had quietly snowballed into a fortune that made his millions look like loose change. "Let the poor thing be," the new wife cooed loud enough for everyone to hear. "Maybe she's part of the cleaning crew. Honest work, right?" Diana's fingers tightened almost imperceptibly around her modest handbag strap. Richard circled her chair like a shark. "You always did love pretending you belonged somewhere above your station," he sneered. "Remember dragging you to my galas? Always the odd one out." His wife snorted, zooming in with her phone. Diana finally lifted her eyes. They held no shame, no rage, only the unshakable calm of someone who already knew how this scene would end. "I'm waiting for my flight, Richard," she said, voice clear and steady. "Your flight?" He threw his head back and laughed, inviting the room to join in. "To where exactly? Back to that shoebox apartment? How many connections this time?" What his arrogance blinded him to was the quiet confidence radiating from her posture, the faint sparkle in her eyes that whispered this conversation was seconds from flipping upside down. If you've ever watched someone dig their own grave with words, subscribe right now, because the next 5 minutes are about to become legendary. Richard was drunk on his own cruelty. He paraded around her seat, performing for the captive audience of first-class passengers now openly staring. "Let me introduce you all to Diana. She's always suffered from delusions of grandeur." His wife cackled, adjusting her angle. "Tell them about her little company, babe." Richard made exaggerated air quotes. "Williams Consulting, rented a closet-sized office in a dump and called herself a CEO. Made less monthly than I spent on bourbon." Diana closed her eyes for a single breath, not from humiliation, but to savor what was coming. Richard took it as surrender and doubled down. "I still remember her crying in court, begging for half the house she never earned." The memory flashed behind her eyes, the sterile court, 3 smug lawyers painting her as a gold-digging fraud, while Richard watched with a satisfied smirk. They had stripped her of everything except a tiny settlement and her name, but they had overlooked one detail: never underestimate a black woman with nothing left to lose. Richard leaned in close. "Admit it, Diana. You're broke, alone, flying coach to nowhere." His wife flashed their destination on her phone screen. "We're headed to the Bahamas on Daddy's G650. Private beats first class every time." This was the moment Diana was supposed to crumble. Instead, she opened her eyes and smiled. Small, genuine, almost pitying. "Are you finished, Richard?" she asked, checking her watch. He barked a laugh that cracked at the edges. "Finished? Sweetheart, I'm just getting warmed up." Diana stood, smoothing her blazer. "Good, because in 5 years, you haven't changed at all. Still the same insecure little man who only feels tall when he's stepping on someone else." Richard's face flushed crimson. "Little? I run 3 companies, 8-figure net worth. You can't even count that high." Diana's smile widened. 8 figures? She let the silence hang. "Actually, I stopped counting at 9. You could have heard a champagne bubble pop." Richard blinked like he'd been slapped. "9? What?" His wife squeaked. "Phone forgotten." An airport staff member appeared at the entrance, looking nervous. "Ms. Williams, your aircraft is ready. Mr. Morrison is waiting to escort you to the tarmac." Richard went rigid. Morrison. David Morrison. $2,000 an hour attorney to billionaires only. There's been a mistake, Richard muttered, voice suddenly small. Diana can't afford. David Morrison strode in, bespoke suit sharp enough to cut glass, carrying a briefcase worth more than most cars. David, Diana greeted warmly. Productive trip? Very. The final Thornton entity closed yesterday. Contracts are ready for your signature en route. A strangled noise escaped Richard's throat. His wife's phone clattered to the marble floor. Which entity? Richard croaked. Morrison didn't even glance at him. All three, sir. Acquired out of foreclosure. Your creditors accepted our bid. Richard swayed like he'd been gut-punched. Diana finally turned to face him fully. Remember when you bragged no one would ever take your empire? Turns out the person who took it was the same incompetent black woman you threw away. She pulled a slim tablet from her understated bag, quietly worth $18,000, and began reading aloud. Jessica from marketing. If you don't meet me after hours, good luck finding another job in this city. Carmen from accounting. Cook the books my way or you're finished. Every passenger now watched in open-mouthed horror. Richard's wife went ghost white. Richard, you said those women were lying? Morrison checked his watch. Ms. Williams, the Financial Journal piece on Thornton corporate fraud and serial harassment goes live in 90 minutes. Federal search warrants are being executed on all offices as we speak. Richard collapsed into a chair, legs giving out. Diana leaned in just enough for him alone to hear. You taught me the game, Richard. I just played it better. She walked away without looking back. Outside, $80 million Global 7500 sat gleaming on the tarmac, crew standing at attention. As Diana climbed the steps, the entire lounge watched through the windows. The woman they just witnessed being publicly humiliated, now boarding a palace with wings, while her ex crumbled on the floor behind her. 6 months later, Diana graced the cover of Forbes, the $800 million queen who bought her ex's empire. Richard lost everything. Companies, homes, reputation. Last seen sipping weak coffee in a thrift store jacket, he looked up when Diana passed his cafe table. She paused, smiled gently, and said, "Real power isn't loud, Richard. It's quiet." Then she walked on, funding scholarships for black women entrepreneurs with the profits from the empire he once said she could never build. Never underestimate the woman you tried to bury. She might just buy the cemetery. If this fired you up, subscribe, because the best revenge stories are the ones that actually happened. Subscribe to our channel.